Good morning. Good evening. Happy Friday to those in the West. My gosh, I hope that your week is ending well. What a week it's been. Oh my goodness. Like this week just flew by. I can't believe it. Um, I'm Beth Reeves. I'm a care manager currently living in China and talking about different things each day. And today, which is my Saturday morning, is what I call my free for all. So I get to pick whatever I talk about. And I think this topic I'm really excited about, and I'm kind of surprised I haven't talked about it yet. But it's the idea of retiring abroad. Why someone might consider doing this. What are things to consider? What have I myself looked into? What have I learned? What am I thinking about? And my thought is that I will introduce this topic today. But what I'm hoping is that maybe this free for all day, this Friday evening, Saturday morning day, we can turn into a bit of a community chat, because I do get a lot of questions about this, about retiring abroad. And I think that there are a lot of questions around it, which can be very personal and individual. So we could, have this be a little bit of a salon and become something that, we can all come together and share things we've learned, share our questions, hear from each other in some way. So that's kind of my thought. I'm excited about it. I hope that that might work, because I also feel I've been thinking a lot about community in general this week, being that it has been a very quiet week. Well, it's kind of funny. I can share, but it's been a relatively quiet week here because of Spring Festival. And Spring Festival is a time in China of families coming together and reunion. That's really the meaning of Spring Festival. Um, and here I have been alone in this quiet town in a different country, and and really reflecting on what uh, what does community mean to me? What would be my ideal community? Am I looking to join one or find one? Am I looking to build one? Like, just thinking about it. So that was connected to why I wanted to do this topic. Okay, so let's just first kind of introduce this idea of retiring abroad. Why would we consider it? Who would consider it, and what are the things to consider about it? All right. So, first of all, um, I'm from the United States. I am almost 60. I'm in my late 50s. And I've been working in healthcare, obviously, with older adults and helping them plan for later years. So I'll say some things that I'm sure you are all aware of, but just, kind of the facts. We are in general living longer, right? Our longevity has been increasing. And so, whereas our lifespan used to be closer to the retirement age of 65, now we could retire and live for another 20 to 30 years. Um, but the cost of that, of living, has also been increasing. So we we are all feeling, I think, that pressure of um, you know, how do we support ourselves and stay safe as we're getting older? And this is not only just about our life and living expenses, but it's also the healthcare fears. Like, what if I need this kind of care or that kind of care? Where will I find it? And how much will that cost me? And etc. So there's the longevity is increasing, and then the cost of living has been increasing. The other thing that has been really interesting to me, and part of what I've been trying to learn more about is the globalization of healthcare. So, medical tourism, how healthcare has really improved in so many other places around the world. And you can, we can receive healthcare in other places, very high quality healthcare that is sometimes very much cheaper than it is in the West. So the quality of care has improved in other places around the world, and the cost of that care is much lower than where it is at home often. So that's an interesting development that's happened in the last, 20 years and is continuing to develop. Um, I think we're also learning more about what we really want as we get older and what really is beneficial and healthy for us. And again, this is still developing, and part of what is very interesting to me and why I'm here is to think about that because um, this is relatively recent. As we've been adapting to our increasing longevity, we have been changing how we think about our life and our structures and our societies around that. So in the old days, maybe 50 years ago or maybe a little longer, the focus was on the family. We lived at home with our families, and the as you got older, you lived with your children. Children took care of you. That is still true in some cultures. Like here in China, it's still true to some extent. It's also changing here. Um, but I think it's more true here than in other places. Um, but it's definitely changed a lot in the West. So first thing we did is we moved to kind of traditional nursing homes. Then we returned. Then we moved into like retirement communities, and now we're kind of expanding that and looking back into alternative structures and new ideas around that. We're still kind of in the retirement community. We're still in this idea of we still have the structure of as we get older, we are um, finding a place where we are cared for, and that is likely with other people who are getting older and in a structure that is designed to care for people who are older, right? It's not like an integrated structure where there's little kids running around and there's teenagers playing game, you know what I mean? There's family. It's not like that. We don't have that. We in the US anyway, it's very much creating institutional settings that feel like home as much as possible, but are still primarily institutions built to care for people who are getting older. Um, I just thought of something. What did I just think of as I was saying that? Institutions. Okay, I don't remember. It'll come back to me. Um, oh yeah, I know what it was. Is that when I was in Europe and I compared that, oh, well, hey, Blue, good evening. Happy Friday to you. Congratulations for getting through the week, my friend. You did it. Thank you for being here. Yeah, I know. I love this topic too. And it's just kind of funny that I haven't thought of doing it until now. But I am hoping that this will be an ongoing conversation that I can maybe this will become, I said in the beginning, this maybe will become my weekly chat, the one that I do on this Friday evening, Saturday morning, because I do think that this would be a great kind of salon conversation topic where people can bring their questions and share their experiences and stuff like that. So um yeah. So what I was going to say is that when I was in Europe, if we talk kind of looking at the American structure, which is still very institutionalized, when I was in Europe, one thing I really noticed and loved, and is unfortunately hard for us to replicate in the US, is that they have a much more walkable structure. You know, their their towns are older, and so they were built for walking. They were built more like the villages, in circular structures, and there'd be a town center, and then there's, you know, the key things are close to that town center. You have your church, you have your, stores, you have your park, and then the homes are around that. And so, as somebody is getting older, if they're living in that village structure, it's easy for them, first of all, to stay in that village, which they're familiar with, where they've grown up, where they have their friends and their grocery store and their um, you know paths that they walk every day. But it's also, you know, walkable in that, if it's in a circle, if you go out and you walk, you're going to keep going, even if you lose your way or something. If you kind of lose track of where you are, you're going to end up back where you started because it's a circle. And there's paths and there's walking wider, areas. There are cobblestones, which can be difficult for walking, but in general, I think that he makes a huge difference. And that is, of course, that's a very deep structural thing that's hard to put on top of an American culture, which came along later and was built, has a lot more space. The country had a lot more space. And so it was built more for cars. And that makes it hard as people get older, because eventually you do have to stop driving. And if you're not in a place with good public transportation, um, it can make it very difficult. So so I think one of the reasons people do think about retiring abroad is, if they're thinking practically, they might take that into consideration. They might think, it's going to be harder for me living in the US, to keep driving. I'm far away from things. I have to drive to get where I need to go all the time. I don't want that. I want to live somewhere that's more walkable as I get older. And of course, being in a walkable community in general is good for our health, right? So if we can find a place that we like to live, which is walkable, we also might support our own health and longevity, more easily, because that's just a natural part of our lives. And then lastly, I would say people do think about, generally, climate and lifestyle and kind of what they want for their lives. What do they want their retirement to look like? Um, what are the things they enjoy? And can they find those things more easily in another location, outside of the United States? Okay, so that's kind of the, like, why somebody might consider that. And I think the broad question is, if you're designing this last third of your life, what do you think about? What are the things you consider? What are the uh, priorities that have come to mind, or things in the back of your head that you're like, I wonder, I wonder if this might be better for me. Um, so now let's see, it's already 8:14. um, well, I guess I can just share a little bit about my experience, and then maybe let's see, what would be the most effective thing to do at this point. Um, Maybe what we could do is each week kind of explore one country, or maybe one um, myth or a topic around this, to dive into it and kind of pull it apart a little bit. And if you're interested about this topic, please let me know what would be some of your key questions. Um, I have looked into this deeply. I have looked into almost all the regions in the world relating to this topic. So I have looked into Latin America, I've looked into South America, I've looked into alternative communities in the United States, I've looked into Europe, I've looked obviously into Southeast Asia. I have looked, even within Europe, kind of like Eastern Europe versus Western Europe. Um, I guess a little bit even into Africa and the Middle East. And just kind of looking at the different criteria and what is realistic, what is what are people who have done it actually saying about their experience. Um, yeah. Bloom says, I would love to hear what made you choose China as the place you landed. What was the number one draw? Oh gosh. So yeah, I would say China, oh gosh, China for me is just it's like a love passion. I can't I actually was really thinking about this week because China is not the easiest place to come. You know, it's not like it's the obvious, like, functional logistical answer. And it might not even be the functional logistical answer for me. Like, it's difficult here. Um, but I just I just love it. Like I don't I love it. Like I it's like I'm in love. I really it is. I walk around here and I am just happy. I'm happy with the people I meet. I'm happy with the places I see. I'm happy with the sky. Like it's just happy. Now, does that mean that it's a place I can live and retire? It doesn't mean that because I don't speak the language. I'm not Chinese. It's not an immigrant country. They don't have visas. They don't want, they don't have it set up for people to come and retire here. Um, and it's just, uh, and there's not a large community of people who come here for all of those reasons. Um, so I'm not quite sure how that will work out for me. And I don't, so I think in this conversation, it's probably not the first place I would start for folks. you know but I think I'm happy to talk about I am looking at, even for myself, I'm still looking at other places in Southeast Asia where I can maybe continue to stay close to China. I'm looking at Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, certainly Vietnam and Thailand, Cambodia, Laos are still on the docket potentially. Taiwan maybe. Well, Taiwan is still kind of same issues as China in a lot of ways. But um, but yeah, had it doesn't seem easy, sure, to move to China. Yeah, it's not easy. And even, for myself where I'm I'm a pretty experienced traveler and I definitely am a geek when it comes to researching things before I go somewhere. Um Even so, and with my love of it, even so, it is difficult logistically. Um yeah. And I think also, like, being on my own, doing it on my own is also difficult. Like doing it with a family or doing it with a partner, um, doing it maybe like if there was some sort of, you know, I don't know, structure where you were coming here initially for a work, um, you had some connection that you were coming here for school or coming here for work or something like that. Like I really just kind of dropped myself by myself into this culture, which is harder than it makes it even harder. So had I been to China before? I really hadn't. I mean, so basically the way that this occurred is I had gone to Europe to explore Europe for I was trying to get my picture back. Um, for this reasons, like I was interested in retiring in Europe. I was looking at kind of Spain and Portugal primarily, maybe France because I speak French, and um, also interested in kind of the European approaches to dementia care because that's, of course, I'm passionate about that. So while I was there in Europe, I was like, seems a lot very similar in a lot of ways to the US. Like it's not that different. And they have some benefits. They have, different some aspects that are stronger and better, but um they're still struggling in the same ways that we are. They have a demographic of aging folks. They have caregiver shortage. They have the cost of care is increasing, and where is that payment going to come from? Is it going to come from the government? It's going to come from private pay. Either way, it's a hard struggle. And so I just started thinking, maybe I want to go further out. And I did decide to do in the middle of my Europe visit, I did a short trip to Asia. And I didn't really pick, I wanted to go to China, but I wasn't sure. I wasn't like that was a focused target initially. I just happened to get a ticket from Barcelona to Beijing that was cheap. It was the cheapest option. And so I was like, okay, this is where I'm going. I'm going to go to Beijing. And I landed in China not knowing how difficult is it? How are these apps going to work? Will I still be able to communicate with my son when I'm over there? Just everything. I didn't know. And I was able to do it. And I just fell in love with it while I was there. And I was like, I definitely want to come back. So really, I consider it the same. I consider it my first visit, really, because I it was all within the same, mental processes. So I did come for that week, went back home, you know, and then returned. So so funny that you mentioned having to have a reason to move to a place. We got a lot of guff for moving to Oregon when we did because we didn't move for jobs or family. We just wanted to. I think it's wonderful that you went there because you wanted to. Yeah, I mean, there's something really interesting, isn't there? There's just like why we might get called or feel this inclination to go to a place. I think it's so interesting because, you know, places are just places. So on the one hand, I'm kind of thinking, what difference can it make? Like, it's just a place. Why, you know, what's the big deal, right? Like I would think that other things would be more important, like the friends and family that I have there and the work opportunities and the food, or I don't know, like I would kind of think that those things would be why someone would move. The culture, the society, the politics, and those things certainly matter. But there's just something about a place, right? There's like the energy of that place. For me, here, although there are things that I am very attracted to from a society standpoint, from a political standpoint, you know, like how they've developed, the country has developed in the last 40, 50, 60 years is just fascinating to me. And I want to learn more about that, like they have an actual track record of eradicating poverty on a large scale in their country. Like that's fascinating. I would love to learn more about that. you know? Um, but but that's not why I'm here. It's not like I want to go learn about eradicating poverty. Let me move to you know what I mean? Like it wasn't the processes. Yeah. So, but I do think like sometimes, especially when I struggle with the language, I feel sad because I don't know at this point if I'll ever be able to speak Chinese, you know. And the simultaneous translation apps are getting better all the time, you know, but I still, I don't know how, I don't know how much I can, especially as I get older, it's going to be harder. So I don't know. We're going to have to see. We're going to have to see. But I do think that I've gone through a kind of series of processes that um, thinking about things that I hear that some people are kind of like at the initial stages of thinking about where they might want to retire or what the options might be. And I really do want to help folks go through that process a little bit. You know what I mean? And like it's a really important process. It's an important thing to think about. It does take some time and energy and so it's good to start thinking about that soon and yeah, just gather information. So have I ever thought about getting Babelfish ear thing? It's like an ear pod. I have not, I haven't, I don't know Babelfish specifically, but I do have, like, even with just regular ear pods, there are apps that do simultaneous translation and playback in your ear. So when I was doing the school tour a couple weeks ago, um, I was invited to go on a school tour with um, the the company that's doing the English program, and they had speakers. And one of the leaders helped me out put the simultaneous translation on my phone. And so then in the afternoon, when the speakers were up speaking purely in Chinese, I was able to get the simultaneous translation on my phone. I didn't do the ear pod at the time because I wanted to hear the Chinese. Like I'm still trying to get my ear accustomed to the Chinese. So I didn't want to just have the English in my ear. So I just had was reading it on my phone, but it was very fast. So I had a little delay. Like I would hear people laugh at a joke and then I would get it and then I would laugh. So there's a little delay, of course, but it was very fast and pretty accurate. So that was amazing. And that was my first time using that, and it was free. It was just a free app that I had on my phone, and I could connect it to my ear. The problem is like it would stop working every now and then the whole app was in Chinese, and I couldn't figure out how to get it to work again, and then have to have like somebody come over and like push the right buttons and get it to work again. Um, you know, so I still have a handicap. That, yeah. And I think a lot of these are developed here in China. Like a lot of these are from here, so I think they're going to get better here probably before anywhere else. So yeah. Did you know the QR code was developed here in China? It started here. So okay, so Bloom says maybe I could walk everyone through the steps that are in each episode for how to decide where to go. Yeah, I think that that would be good. I mean, I was thinking I could do it by by country, but um I think it might be good to have more of like a kind of a step approach, kind of like what are the first things to think about? Let's outline that. Let's work through that a little bit and discuss it. And then, go into like a part two. Like, okay, once you've answered these things, then yeah, exactly. So Bloom's saying, yeah, maybe steps first and then dive into the countries. Yeah, I think so too. Um, because I think in a way that's a better excuse me. Um, I think we have a tendency to kind of try to dive right into countries first or even regions or something. And I think it's important to really focus on your values and understand, you know, that because yeah, and then look at countries. And also just the hardship of it. I mean, I know a lot of people when I was in South America and Latin America, I was in Ecuador, beautiful place, our expats, great food, great cost of living, great climate. Um, but there was like a pretty significant trend of people staying 2 to 3 years and then returning. So why? Why do they only last 2 to 3 years? Well, a lot of times it's the language. A lot of times it's but the culture is just more difficult to adapt to than they expected. But a lot of times it's family, they have a new grandchild, they want to be closer. And then sometimes it's health issues, and they felt like they would be more comfortable in the American health system. So, you know, it's yeah. But I think there's a truth that there are people that are economic refugees where they don't have a choice. They have to live abroad. And if that's the case, then how do you decide that? Well, if you really have to move abroad, then, how do you prepare yourself for that change? So, yeah, being realistic. All right. Well, I'm going to think about that. I'm going to try to put together a structure to keep this conversation going. And I really hope that folks feel invited to come into the conversation and, bring questions, and maybe I can even have some other people come on who also are retiring abroad, people that I've met, and kind of what their journey was and how they um, made their decision and what their experience has been so far. And yeah, and just kind of answer questions. It's a big topic. It definitely is not easy. So yeah, thanks, Bloom. I am so happy to have you with me all the time. I just want to say something also. I want to say how much I've been thinking about you this week and how you have really taught me. I've been inspired by you and the hard work that I see you doing. And I just wanted to tell you that because it really has meant so much to me this week. I think people don't realize how how much work goes in to some product, whether it's a YouTube live or it's a piece of artwork or it's a marketing strategy or whatever. And you do 17 million different things and you do them all fantastically well. You're so generous. But I also just when you were doing a demonstration for one of your things, and you kept taking the time to go through the steps, and I felt myself at different points being like, oh, okay, well that stopped, okay, I'm gonna go. Oh no, wait, she's still going, she's gonna fix it. She's not giving up, she's gonna fix it right now, she's gonna explore that deeper. And that commitment, that's a muscle that you've built, and um it just affected me. So thank you for that, and for yeah. And I'll see you later. Okay. Bye, everyone. Thank you.